Welcome to What the Farm Podcast. My name is Rob Sharkey. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm a farmer from Illinois, and I'm also host of Shark Farmer Radio.
And I am the other co-host, Leslie Kelly, also known as High Hills in Canola Fields, and the wife, mother farmer who lives in Saskatchewan.
Do you put traveler in there?
I should. Adventurer.
Adventurer. I mean, you're always rolling somewhere.
I really like traveling.
It's cool to see you not just traveling to these places, but you're taking advantage and you're meeting some farmers out there. You get some interviews done. I saw you out to Sandy's place. That was pretty cool.
Oh, my God, that was amazing. I got to combine corn for the very first time.
Yeah, how'd you do?
I sat in the buddy seat, but I got to be there and do it.
They didn't let you run it?
No, I would have broken something. It was very muddy.
Yeah, they've really had a hard harvest up there, haven't they?
They have. It was so muddy, but they were getting it off.
Okay, today you got us a pretty cool guest. You got Hanna Hilser from Mandan, North Dakota. Is that right, Hanna?
Yeah, Mandan, like the man, and then Dan, who is the man. So Mandan.
Mandan. I love that.
Now, Leslie, where did you meet Hanna at?
I met Hanna at an event. It was a North Dakota Farmers Union event in North Dakota, and she was there giving out her beer. And so I got to chatting with her. She shared a little bit of her background story, and I thought it was really cool, her being a female brewer.
Yes, well, welcome, Hanna.
Thanks.
You're from North Dakota, but is that where you're originally from?
Yes, so I grew up in North Dakota, and I traveled all over for school. So I started at the state college here in Bismarck, right across the river from Mandan, and then went to work on my undergrad studies at MSU, Minnesota State University in Moorhead, Minnesota. And I was there studying sociology, and I got offered this national student exchange program. So my boyfriend at the time, who I'm now married to, he and I went out to Oregon for a year. We were studying sociology out there, and then moved back to Minnesota, finished our degree, and then went out to Ohio for grad school.
How does someone who goes to university in sociology finds themselves as a brewer?
Well, when we were living in Oregon, we moved out there, and I had just turned 21, so I hadn't really gotten into drinking much. Occasionally here and there we'd have beers or have a drink at a party, but it was when we were in Oregon. We lived in this neighborhood. It was called the Whitaker, and there were 5 breweries within walking distance of my house. So we learned our love of craft beer there. We'd walk to school every day, and my boyfriend at the time, he's my husband now. So my husband would always talk about how he wanted to learn how to brew beer, and we were dirt poor. So I would always just pat him on the back and be like, yeah, honey, one day, we'll learn how to brew beer. And I didn't think it would happen because I had looked up homebrew equipment and saw how expensive it was. And I knew that we still had to make our move back to Minnesota. And I just thought that was kind of a pipe dream. But I was working at a Pizza Hut at the time, and I had saved up some of my tips and hid them from him, didn't let him know I had it. So when we got back for his birthday, I bought him some home brewing equipment. Not very nice stuff, but nice enough to get us through. And we brewed the first batch, and we just fell in love with it. That's when we moved back to Minnesota. So when we were in Minnesota, a small brewery had opened called Junkyard Brewing Company, and we became regulars there. After having 5 or 6 breweries in our neighborhood in Eugene, we were worried about going back to Minnesota and not having any good beer. So we're really excited to learn about Junkyard Brewing Company, and we had gone in there and became pretty good friends with the owners. And one day Dylan was in the bathroom, and I kind of talked him into hiring Dylan to brew. And he came back from the bathroom, and he's like, oh, Dylan, how do you feel about working here? And Dylan was kind of taken aback, and I always joke that I solicited him a little bit. So he started working there and learned how to brew professionally there. I didn't work there. I drank there quite a bit, but I didn't work there.
Huh.
And we had continued home brewing. We really just had a desire to open a brewery, but we were going to school for sociology, and really the only thing you do with that degree is go to grad school and become a professor. So that had always been in our plans. While we're learning how to brew and falling in love with the craft and the community, we also knew that we had to go to grad school. So we kind of made a joke. We're like, well, we'll apply to all these grad schools. We were both studying sociology. We get into the same school with full funding, then we'll go to grad school. If not, we'll open a brewery. And we didn't think there was any chance that we'd get into the same school with full funding. And then, of course, we did. So off to Ohio we went. We had to put our dreams of owning a brewery in the back burner. We got to Ohio to go to grad school. We were in Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. And it's a really cute little town. And there was a tiny little brewery there that, again, had just opened. We were there for opening night. We just came across it, and we fumbled in. It was kind of a hard place to find. It was just like a hidden little shop, and you didn't know if you were actually going into a brewery or if you were just walking into somebody's shop party, but in the middle of a residential area, too, so we were a little bit lost. But it was called Bowling Green Beer Works, and it was just a one-man show, and he was in a little over his head, so we ended up working there. So we're going to school full-time, have to work for the school to get our stipend, and then we start working at this brewery, and Dylan quickly became the head brewer. I became the general manager and assistant brewer, so we were doing that full-time. And we made it about a year and a half before we got burnt out trying to do all of that. So we sat down one day and we had to decide if we were going to continue with grad school or if we wanted to open a brewery, and we both knew the answer was open a brewery. So we came back to Mandan for Christmas. We saw the space was available, so we went and looked at it and just fell in love with it. It was in shambles, like the ceiling was coming down, and there was purple carpet and pink walls, and
that's bad.
Someone had smoked in it for 20 years. Yeah, the landlord just thought that we were nuts. He's like, I don't see it. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I think you guys are a little bit crazy, but if you're willing to pay me every month for the space, that's great. That's kind of when we decided that we were going to drop out of grad school and move back home and open a brewery. And then we spent a long time fixing the building up, and the rest is history.
Whoa. All right. At the beginning of the story, you said you're originally from North Dakota. That's where you grew up.
Yes.
You said that you really hadn't drunk till you were 21. I will say, in the words of my mentor, Ron Burgunder, I don't believe you.
I wasn't much of a partier, like a little bit when high school started, but it just really wasn't for me, so I kind of took a different path.
Maybe that's why you've got an appreciation for the craft beer, because you didn't spend your youth drinking Natural Light.
Yeah.
Zima Pop? Is that what you did?
Hey, don't be knocking Zima now.
And whoa. You said you hid money. I'm curious, because my grandparents, they hid money in coffee cans, and then they dug holes in their backyard, and that's how they hid money. Did you do the same?
No, I didn't get that extreme. I just had it like in like a box in my closet. He doesn't really clean much. Knew he wouldn't find it. He wouldn't be digging through there. So
if I want to go and brew some beer, how much does that equipment cost?
I think at the time I spent a little over $300 on it.
Oh,
okay. You were a student. That was worth quite a bit.
Going to school in Oregon, I could only go for 1 year as an exchange student. If I wanted to stay, I had to pay out-of-state tuition, and at the University of Oregon is about $60,000 a year. So we spent all the money to move out to Oregon, and then a year later had to turn back and move back. So we had to have money for gas, U-Haul, taking time off work, deposits on apartments, and things like that. So we were pretty tight on cash.
Okay, so you and your boyfriend, now husband, really didn't have any history with brewing or anything to do with it until you went out to Oregon and you guys got hammered at these 5 breweries every night, and then you decided you wanted to do that. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that I believe.
I don't think I had a single craft beer ever, like not even like a Leinenkugels, or I don't think I had like anything fancy, for lack of a better term, fancy craft beer until I had moved to Oregon. I remember drinking my first dark beer, and it was a place called Growler Guys. It wasn't even a brewery. It was a place that had like 40 beers on tap, and we stumbled in one night and we were just like, what's this, and they taught us a little bit. Yeah. We always made the joke in our neighborhood that within a 5-minute walk to any of the breweries in our neighborhood, and usually about a 10-minute stumble home.
Okay, I tell you, no. I want to go down a rabbit trail. This has nothing to do with anything, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Mandan, that's where your brewery is now.
Correct.
Do they have the rentable scooters like all the other cities do?
No, we don't. We don't have a bike share program. We don't have the rentable scooters. We got none of that.
Okay.
You got to get Uber or Lyft. That's the only way you can get somewhere.
I'm curious as to what were your feelings or what was going through your mind when you leave school and you go into a building that has pink walls and purple carpet and things are falling down and you start this whole new adventure?
I had a lot of feelings. I know my husband was excited, but he was a lot more nervous about it. I was kind of on a high, so for so long, for about 6 or 7 years, I had this plan that I was going to go to grad school, become a professor, get tenure, and die in academia. And it was a big weight lifted off my shoulders. I mean, I put on this whole new weight onto my shoulders, but I was really excited. So at first it was a little bit scary, but we were really just ready to do it. We knew that we had wanted to do it for a long time, and we couldn't believe it was actually happening. And it was a lot of work. We were both working full-time, other menial jobs, serving, managing other restaurants in town. So we were doing that full-time. Renovating the space was a full-time job too. So we had professionals come in and do the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, but we did everything else. So grinding the carpet glue off the floors, painting everything. We've got a cooler down in the basement, and then it's an 80-foot draw to where we serve the beer. So we built all that. We hooked it up in the walk-in cooler, brought it up to the front, hooked up all the faucets, and we did all that stuff ourselves. We learned a lot, and it was really frustrating at sometimes. I remember some days leaving and thinking, I should just start this place on fire. Why did we do this?
Jeez,
If we just started it on fire, we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Like, what did we get ourselves into? So, I mean, it didn't take a super long time to start getting a little bit fed up with, because there was a lot of work that needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But we set a goal, and we were already in it, and we had to just keep on pushing through. And I think that's a really important quality we found to have in owning a business. So sometimes it's going to be really tough. You're going to hate it, but you got to do it. You got to push through. So that's what we did, and we spent 9 months working on the space, and we had a lot of really great help. We had my brother, Dylan's whole family, one of our good friends, Chris. Sometimes he was in here before we were working on stuff. So we had a really great group of friends and family that helped us. Because if it had just been us two, it probably would have taken us 3 years to get it all done. But with them, it only took us 9 months.
Not everybody has that entrepreneurial mindset. Where do you think you and your husband got that from?
I am not 100% sure. So my dad was always like a really hard worker, and my parents had taught me a really strong work ethic, and Dylan's parents had done the same. We started dating in 2010. We always kind of joked we wanted to own our own business. I kind of always wanted to open a coffee shop. He didn't really know what he wanted, but he knew he wanted to be his own boss. So we had talked about it for a long time, and I don't really know where it came from. It's just something that's in us, I guess.
No, I think you answered it, honestly. I mean, you see a lot of people in agriculture, farm kids that had to do that work ethic, go and become entrepreneurs, especially if both you and your husband had parents that instilled good work ethics. I think that's where it comes from. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Where did you get the name Dialectic Brewery?
So again, Dylan and I went to school for 7 years for sociology and decided to leave, and we thought that maybe we should pay some homage to our studies, because really, had we not gone off to college, even though it's cost us a fortune, we'll be paying it off forever, had we not gone to college, we definitely would not have made it to where we are today. So we wanted to pay some homage to sociology, and it's actually a philosophical theory we had learned early on in our studies. Dialectic is the art of finding the truth in your opinion. It's all about having a discussion with individuals, trying to find why you believe what you believe. It's supposed to be like unemotional, not heated, but really just to talk back and forth to figure out why you believe what you believe, to get an idea of your worldview. And we thought that would be a really cool kind of theme for the brewery. So we don't have TVs in here. You're kind of forced to talk to your neighbor. We found that a lot of friendships have developed in here, so we're really excited to see that, because people are forced to talk to each other. They choose to talk to each other, and they come in here knowing that they get to have a conversation with someone, and try not to be like too, like religious or political, and sometimes it gets on that. But everyone's really good about trying to hold back their emotions and really just have like an honest conversation about what's going on in society, what's going on in our community. And
how big is Mandan?
oh, geez, I think it's about 18,000 people.
I mean, did you feel like that is big enough to sustain a craft beer brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a big city right across the river. So about 7 miles from us, there is a town of about 80,000. That draws people over here too. So we've got a pool of at least about 100,000 people to draw from. We definitely thought it'd be big enough to support. There's plenty of places that, have small populations, 1,000 people, and they can get a brewery to go. You just really have to get people in the doors to try it. Once they're in, they're hooked. But and when we first opened, there were 2 other breweries in town. One of them has since moved to the city across the river.
You ran them out.
There's only no, they didn't have a tap room, so where they brewed it, they didn't serve it. They were just brewing in the back of a bar and then selling their beer to the bar.
Gotcha.
So they kind of wanted their own space, and they thought Bismarck would be better. And then the other brewery in the town, Buffalo Commons, they're awesome, but they're only open on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So we knew that the rest of the week people still want to drink beer. So we opened, and we're closed on Sundays and Mondays, but open the rest of the week.
One thing you mentioned when I met you at that event was the notion or the stereotype of a girly drink. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, so we get that a lot. Both men and women come in. Mostly men will come in and be like, I want a girly drink, and as a feminist, sometimes that got on my nerves. I was like, what do you mean girly drink, I knew what he meant. I knew they wanted something sweet or fruity, something light. I always kind of got on my nerves, so Dylan and I we're both pretty nerdy. We like statistics, so we sat down one week and we're like, all right, we're going to keep track of the beers that men and women are drinking, put a little W next to the button, so when a woman ordered it, we'd click on that one, and a man ordered it, we put the one on the M. And we found that we actually had more women ordering IPAs than we had men ordering IPAs.
Really?
So we still do it to this day. It's kind of a joke when people come in. A man, for instance, will be like, well, I need like a girly drink. So sometimes if I'm feeling real feisty, I'll pour a sample of the IPA and give it to them. I'm like, this is what most of the women here drink. So
whoa. So to get it clear, the women drink, are you talking about like something that would be like a Blue Moon or a Summer Shandy along those lines, the more lighter beer?
Yes. So when people are asking for a girly drink, they're looking for a fruited beer, a light beer, apple cider, things like that. Or at least, they think that women aren't going to be drinking the hoppy beer or the really strong beers. And we found that's not true.
Interesting.
Blue Moon's my go-to. Well, probably Summer Shandies, but that's only seasonal, it seems like. So I guess I'm into the girly beers.
See, so you're not. So we should just start calling those man beers.
I don't know. I'm not very manly, so it doesn't matter. It is. Oh, it's funny. Here's another rabbit trail, because I used to get on social media, and I love margarita. That's my go-to drink, margaritas. And I didn't realize that was a girly drink. Everybody's like, oh, you're drinking like a girl. Like, what? Hell, haven't you ever heard the Jimmy Buffett song? This is a good drink. And I will go toe-to-toe with anybody drinking a pitcher of margaritas.
I just think it's sort of interesting how people have these ideas or these stereotypes of what men drink and what women drink, and hold on to that so firmly when really, especially in my line of work in the brewery field, like those gender lines really get blurred. So it's really interesting to see that it's still holding, and I'm wondering how long people are going to keep asking me for girly drinks.
You like your drinks to have an umbrella, and I think that's what makes it girly.
Well, yeah. What do you drink, Leslie? But I know it's wine.
Oh,
but if you didn't have wine, what is your go-to?
You know what? I don't know. I don't have like a second. Maybe a margarita.
Yeah.
I'm not a sweet. I can't do really sweet drinks.
Huh. How long has your brewery been open?
We opened middle of May of 2018, so a little over a year and a half.
And how's it going?
It's been great. We have definitely been getting busier. So last year we expected that's going to be one of our busiest years. We're just opening. Everyone's going to want to come check us out. We kind of thought that would hold as our busiest time. Like, man, the first year is going to be slamming. It might go down a little bit after that, but this year has definitely been getting busier. We've got a really, really awesome group of regulars. I know when people are coming in, people have got their certain days. It's been awesome. We've just been increasingly busier. We get new people all the time, too, which is really great. Our point-of-sale system shows us, if people are paying with credit cards, our return customers compared to our new customers, and it's nearly the same. So we have a lot of return customers, but we also keep getting a lot of new people. So I'm feeling pretty good with where we're going. I feel comfortable and confident that it's going where we want it to go.
Awesome.
Super cool. The other question I had was, you talked, and I thought this was super interesting, and I could relate, because when people come to the farm, they don't mean to, but rather than talk to me or ask me questions, they'll just ask for my husband or my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you also shared that it's very similar in the how you were treated, how they'll ask for your husband.
Yeah, so the story I told, I would be downstairs, Dylan would be back in the brew house or in the office, and someone would come in and, we'd get to chat, and I'd start talking about the brewing process or how this certain beer was brewed and what's special about it, something along the process of the beer being brewed. And, they would smile, nod their head. Then my husband would come around the corner, and they would turn to him, and they would ask him, try to confirm what I had said, to make sure, is what she said true? Is she telling this right? Does she really know what she's talking about? And it gets really frustrating. I also have people, we'll be sitting there talking. They'll be like, oh, when the brewer gets up here, I'm going to ask him a couple questions. He's like, oh, you can ask me. I do a lot of the brewing too. I know the whole process. I've been doing this for a long time. What's your question? And often they'd either be like, some people are cool about it and would proceed to ask me the question. Some people are a little confused, and some people just be like, I'll just wait for Dylan, so I do find as a woman sometimes it's hard to be taken seriously, especially on the brewing side of it. So everyone thinks I can stand up front and serve everybody and take care of everybody, but it's a little harder for some people to grasp that I can do the brewing side of it, the science part.
So there's not many women brewers, right? I think you said 1% to 2% in the industry?
Yeah, I think it was 2 to 3% according to the Pink Boot Society. Pink Boot Society is just an organization that brings female brewers together. There aren't a lot. There's a surprising amount in North Dakota. So I'm a brewer, Fargo Brewing Company. I don't think she's actually a brewer. I think she deals more with casking beer, which is after brewing and fermentation, you put it into a barrel of beer or things like that. And then there's one at Drecker Brewing Company in Fargo. So there's a few in North Dakota, which is really cool. But yeah, it's not, compared to, there's probably 40 male brewers in North Dakota and 3 female brewers. But
Mm-hmm. What were you doing at the Farmers Union event?
My friend Molly had asked me to come. There was a cool talk. It's called Meet the Alewife. I didn't give it, but it talks about the history of women in beer dating up to, I think it ended about the 17th century. So she had given her talk, and Molly just had asked me to speak a little bit about what it's like to be a woman in the brewing industry and to serve my beer to all the ladies that were there. So I got to be there. I got to serve my beer, share my product.
Whoa. You telling me that guys didn't get a beer?
There was one guy there. He was also a brewer. He just brought beer. So not very many men signed up for this. It was Women in Leadership Development Conference.
Did they know there was beer involved?
Probably. I think
would have
women
increased.
kept that on the down low. I don't think they put that in with the tickets. I don't think we told anybody.
Wow.
I love this event because they had Hanna there. I got to try her beer, and they also had boxed wine.
Yeah. You were in heaven.
I was. I'm curious, when people come in and talk to you about the barley and the brewery, do they ask you about if what you use is a GMO, like if the barley is a GMO and if there's pesticides and Roundup in your beer.
No, I have never gotten that question, which is like kind of surprising being in North Dakota because we are such a big farming community, but also not surprising because I don't know that people care that much, or that's something that we've really been like taught to care about in North Dakota. It's hard to describe, but no, we have not been asked that.
It kind of surprises me. Does it surprise you, Leslie?
Yeah, especially over the last couple of years with activists coming out and saying there's glyphosate in wine and alcohol and beer and cereal. So yeah, I think that's really good that she hasn't got those questions.
I'm going to stereotype here, Hannah. Craft beer breweries, maybe a little more higher end, maybe a little more, I don't know, urban. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm pleasantly surprised that that's not a concern to your customers.
I'm pretty confident in our product, so we're really lucky because we get most of our grain from 20 miles away, so 2-track malting. They've got a facility in North Dakota. They've got a really cool product on every single one of their bags. They've got like a QR scanner, so you can scan that code, and it'll show you down to the 2-track section line of where that malt or that barley was harvested. They're really awesome about being transparent about where their stuff comes from and how they grow it, how they harvest it, how they process it. And it's only 20 miles away, so that's really awesome. They carry most of the grains that we need. There's just a few that we can't get, some specialty malts. Mm-hmm. We get those out of Minnesota.
And the best-selling beer at your brewery is?
Oh, it's so hard. We've got a few that are really popular. So our frontal lobotomy, our nut brown ale, is one of those that we always keep on tap. That one we named after Dylan's dad. They were out hunting one day, and the boys were sitting in the cattails getting ready to shoot the ducks, and their dad was messing with the blinds, and they're yelling at their dad like, "Pa, you got to get over here. The ducks are coming in." So he runs over to the boys in the cattails and plops down, and he gets a cattail right up his nose, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And Dad said, "I think I just had a frontal lobotomy." So we had to name that beer after him. So I've even got a tap handle with a little cattail on it that we only use for our frontal lobotomy nut brown.
He put a cattail. Cattails are big.
Yeah, and they got that huge spike on the top, and that went right up.
Yeah. Oh my Lord!
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to laugh or not.
I know, that's how I feel too, but I laugh now. He gets a kick out of it. I think he's a little sad that the beer we named after him was kind of an embarrassing story, and like a story he probably doesn't like to think about very much. I think he's still honored to have a beer named after him, but
hey, if you ever want to name a beer after anything I've done embarrassing, you go right ahead.
All right, deal. We've got a couple other beers that are really popular too. Our Rhythm Rug is a Berliner Weiss, which is a sour beer. When we decided we wanted to brew it, we did a lot of research. We wanted to make it as traditional as possible. And in Germany, they've got the Bavarian law or the purity law that says you can only have grain, yeast, hops, and water in beer. You can't have things like herbs and spices and fruit. So to get around that, what they would do is they would brew this Berliner Weiss, and then they would have a syrup on the side, and they would give their customer the glass of beer, and then they would give them a little shot of the syrup, and the guest would have to pour the syrup into the beer. They would do raspberry and woodruff is just a sweet herb. So we decided to be as traditional as possible. We have got the raspberry syrup and the woodruff syrup. We used to serve it on the side, but it was just a giant mess. So now we just put it in the beer when they order it, so you can get it by itself or with one of the two syrups. That one's been really popular. It's a really good transitional beer, so people who are used to drinking Bud Light or like drinking all the domestic beers or a wine drinker, we can get them in and they drink that beer and they love it. So that one's been really popular as well.
There you go, Leslie. Yes, I would not trust Leslie to pour the syrup in the beer herself either. Good call.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, Hannah, where can everybody find you on social media, websites, all that stuff?
So we've got Facebook and Instagram at Dialectic Brewing Co., a web page, www.dialecticbrewingcompany.com.
Yeah, very cool. So Hanna Hilser, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been really cool. This is something that I don't know a lot about. I love the drive that entrepreneurs have, and I love it that you just went in there and redid this place and took this all on. And I hope you make it a huge success and just have tons of customers and keep doing this for the rest of your life.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. This has been a blast. This was fun.
Oh, well, Hanna, thank you so much. And everybody else, we hope you tune in next time.
Bye.